This also marks the 5th and final day of the lecture on becoming an adventurer. Once this lecture is over, the students will be eligible to explore dungeons and go on adventures. But before they depart for the dungeon, the professor opens the floor for any final questions. Ryou asks, "Is there a way to teleport directly to a dungeon floor that we've already reached before?" The professor replies, "Ryou, I'm impressed you know about such a thing. You might find a system like that in the dungeons of the southern provinces. However, nothing of the sort exists in the Loontown dungeon." In the next scene, the professor leads all the students towards the dungeon, explaining that the monster population inside is constantly multiplying. When their numbers grow too large, they begin to spill out from the entrance, an event known as the Great Tidal Bore. He clarifies that the massive walls around the dungeon were built for this very purpose, to prevent the monsters from reaching the town. After registering their information at the reception desk, they all proceed directly inside the dungeon. The professor then says, "As I mentioned, this is the first layer, so you won't find any dangerous monsters here." However, while exploring the first layer, Ryou and Eamon encounter a soldier ant. Ryou effortlessly pins it in place with magic and tells Eamon to attack. Eamon then kills the soldier ant with a single blow. After the fight, Ryou extracts the magic stone from inside the creature. Later that evening, inside the guild's dormitory, Ryou is talking with his roommates. As new adventurers, they're required to stay in the guild's dormitory for their first 300 days. Their conversation turns to how, for the past few months, soldier ants have been appearing on the first and second layers. This is unusual, as according to the professor's lecture, soldier ants shouldn't be appearing so close to the entrance. Just then, Abel arrives and explains, soldier ants can create tunnels, which is how they reach the upper layers. Seeing the famous adventurer Abel in person, the other three are left completely speechless. Abel then says, "You three are Ryou's roommates, right?" "I'm Abel. By the way, Ryou is plenty strong, but he's a strange one." "Abel, are you looking for a fight?" Suddenly, Nils jumps to his feet and introduces himself, telling Abel that he's a huge fan. Abel gives Nils some advice. An adventurer's first responsibility is to survive. Don't you ever forget that. Ryou then asks, "By the way, Abel, what are you doing at the guild this late at night?" Abel explains that his group, the Crimson Party, has just returned from completing a quest. Right on cue, the other members of the Crimson Party arrive. Ryou says, "Abel, let's go. We have to give our quest report to the guildmaster." But Abel starts making excuses, clearly trying to avoid meeting with the guildmaster. Without a word, his teammate Warren simply hoists Abel up and begins carrying him off. As they leave, a party member named Lin stares at Ryou for a moment, which he finds a bit odd. After a moment, Lin turns and leaves with everyone else. The next day, Ryou and Eamon go to the dungeon together and defeat numerous monsters. However, in the process, Eamon becomes completely exhausted. Ryou then comments, "Your fighting style is very similar to Abel's." Eamon explains, "Kiro taught me swordsmanship. He learned it from a very prestigious school in the royal capital." Ryou says, "If you practice hard enough, you can become as strong as Abel too. When I was traveling with him, I saw that the first thing he does every morning is train his swordsmanship." Hearing this, Eamon says, "If that's the case, then I'll work even harder from that one." The following day, Ryou decides not to go to the dungeon and visiting the library instead. In the library, Ryou reads up on the subject of alchemy. Afterwards, Ryou sits outside and contemplates how he should begin his alchemy studies. Just then, a solar eclipse suddenly occurs. The sky grows dark across the entire area. Ryou notices he's completely alone and that everyone else has vanished. On top of that, he feels a very strange sensation, as if the whole world has changed. Suddenly, a powerful fire attack is launched at Ryou. He manages to block the attack at the very last moment. From the shadows, an Akuma walks towards Ryou and says, "It seems a human has been caught up in this as well, but that will make a difference, because you are about to die." At that moment, Ryou identifies the creature as an Akuma, sensing an incredibly powerful aura emanating from it, an aura on par with a behemoth or a griffin. Because of this, Ryou's first instinct is to escape, but suddenly she launches another powerful fire attack on him. While he's blocking her fire attack, she fires a compressed bullet of wind magic that strikes Ryou. This pushes Ryou back, but the spell hits his enchanted clothes and is completely nullified. Because of this, Ryou avoids a serious injury. When she sees that her magic was cancelled, she appears slightly surprised. She then notices that Ryou is wearing the clothes of the Fairy King. In response, she attacks Ryou with her sword and he manages to hold his own against her swordsmanship. However, in terms of pure skill, the Akuma is a little better than Ryou. When Ryou attacks her with his magic, she easily dodges all of his attacks. Ryou understands that she's using wind magic to enhance her speed and swordsmanship. As their fight progresses, the solar eclipse slowly begins to fade. The two of them continue their intense battle for a considerable time. Whatever injuries the Akuma sustains, she feels from them almost instantly. Then, just as the solar eclipse is about to end, she stops fighting. She says, "It's been a long time since I've had so much fun in a fight. You are a very entertaining person, but I don't have much control over the cloister. My name is Leonora Uraka Albuquerque. And what's your name?" Ryou replies, "My name is Ryou, and you are an Akuma." The Akuma, Leonora, says, "You know about us. Truly, that makes you a very dangerous person, and considering how strong you are, I'm sure we will face each other again. But don't you dare die at the hands of anyone else but me, because only I have the right to kill you. Until then, you wait for me." After the solar eclipse ends, the Akuma disappears and everything returns to normal. Ryou remarks, "If I hadn't been wearing these clothes, there would be a hole in my shoulder by now. Aside from that, I need some money to buy those books." And so Ryou heads out to withdraw money from his account. Afterwards, when Ryou returns to the guild's dormitory, he sees that his roommates are not in the room. Then, as he's about to treat his shoulder, he looks down from his window and sees his roommates being beaten up by some other boys. These boys are clearly bullying Ryou's friends. Ryou quickly goes downstairs and takes out 4 of the 5 boys in an instant, after which the 5th boy moves forward to punch Ryou. But Ryou very easily dodges his punch and, with just a light tap, knocks him to the ground. After that, Ryou gives his roommates a potion to help them with their fatigue. Later, while bathing, Ito heals Ryou's shoulder. Ryou says, "My pain is completely gone. Ito, you're a real priestess for that. Thank you for that." But Ito says, "If that wound had been near your heart, you would have been in serious danger. By the way, how did something like this happen to you?" Ryou says, "Well, she did aim at my heart, but I managed to shift just a bit at the last second." Eamon and Nils are a little surprised to hear this and ask Ryou, "Who exactly were you fighting?" Ryou makes up an excuse and dodges the question. And there, this episode ends.